of European colonization. And notice that the countries that are most strongly in support of Israel are not just the United States. It's the United States, Australia, and Canada, the offshoots of England, Anglosphere sometimes called, unusual forms of imperialism. These are settler colonial societies, societies in which not like India, not like the British in India, say, societies, South Africa is a little like this, or Algeria under the French, settler colonial societies in which the settlers came in, essentially eliminated the native population, also driven by religious principles, very religious groups driven by Christian Zionism. Those are major cultural factors.
I said race was first created by the Catholic Church. This is not what I was referring to, but this is correct. What I was referring to was around the 1100s during Alexios III's reign, the Catholic Church implemented something that was blood purity. Anyone who was Anglo-Christian was pure blood. Literally everyone else was impure and they were worthy of death. That was the Crusades. But the document of discovery of 1493, this was the Catholic decree that said any Christian that looked like me had the rightful claim of any and all land and waterways in the world. It basically says that all indigenous people are not human. And this is still in effect today. So the Catholic Church believes that if you are black or brown, you are not human. The Catholic Church believes that all land and water belongs to the Anglo-Christian man. And yet, how many of us allies and accomplices are still Christians? Learn up.
Why it's named the District of Columbia, quote, Little Rome by the Jesuits of Vatican origin. Jesuit John Carroll was probably the richest man in America in the late 1700s. Carroll allowed funding to construct D.C., which is nicknamed, quote, Rome on the Potomac, end quote. In fact, Wikipedia and the Catholic Encyclopedia confirm Washington, D.C.'s original name as Rome, Maryland. A branch of the Potomac River was called Tiber after a river in Rome. Owner of the land used to be Francis Pope. Get it? Pope Francis. And his priest was Jesuit Andrew White. Like Rome, Washington, D.C. has 7 hills, whose names are Capitol Hill, Meridian Hill, Floral Hills, Forest Hills, Hillbrook, Hillcrest, and Knox Hill. Daniel Carroll owned land in D.C., along with Roman Catholic Pierre Lafont, who was part of the creation of Washington, D.C., the architect of Washington.
Turn it over to Kamala, who says, what the hell am I doing with this guy right now? But all kidding aside, I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than you all do.
Think that the removal of this clear and simple language condemning white supremacy reveals that the true purpose of this bill is to teach our students a whitewashed version of American history?
No, absolutely not.
It reads like a how-to guide in historical whitewashing. Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the writings of Frederick Douglass?
I am.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yes.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the history of Native Americans? Yet the new version of the bill from the Senate, this is not the bill we all passed as a House, but the Senate's version, it still includes the writings of Alexis de Tocqueville, and he's not even an American. Could that be because he's a white man? By my count, the new version from the Senate, again, this is not the bill we passed, as the House. This is the bill from the Senate. It removes 9 historical figures of color and 6 female historical figures from the bill, which means that all mentions of people of color or women have been removed from this bill. Is that correct?
I'll take your word for it, Representative.
Generation of the black community.
So I'm on Google, right? There's multiple articles on this, by the way. Make sure y'all check it out. This one, it says, guilty international jurists release final detailed verdict on U.S. and state governments, patterns of genocide against black, brown, and indigenous people. Okay? It also says, the jury found the United States guilty on 5 counts based on testimony and documents presented at last October's historic human rights terminal held in New York. A distinguished panel of 9 international jurists has released its detailed final verdict, finding the United States guilty of genocide against black, brown, and indigenous people. That's crazy. And I ain't heard this nowhere. Y'all look it up. If you heard something, let me know in the comments.
Old world. You see where Canada is? That's where ancient Arcadia used to be. You see where Tennessee is? That's where ancient Egypt used to be. Where Utah is ancient Israel. Where Mesoamerica is, that's where ancient Babylonia used to be. And where South America is, that's where ancient Assyria used to be. They flipped the maps on you guys. Now let me prove to you that America is the true old world.
But the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it. The owl also and the raven shall dwell in it, and he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness.
North America. Carments are actually native to North America. Some people may actually assume that they are an introduced species because lethal and non-lethal measures are used to manage their populations. But carments are actually large fish predators that appear to have a big effect on fish stocks. Now let's have a look at this famous bird written in the Bible that's only indigenous from the Americas.
The screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest. There shall the great owl make her nest, and lay and hatch, and gather under her shadow.
Now let's talk about the screech owl, which is only indigenous from eastern North America. The eastern screech owl, Megascop osceo, or eastern screech owl, is a small owl that is relatively common in eastern North America from Mexico to Canada. In ancient Egypt, they featured a god by the name of Anubis. Anubis had a canine head with a humanoid body. Wouldn't you know that this particular canine can only be found in America? Yes, in Mexico, they have this particular dog that is known as Xoloitzcuintli. Quintly is one of several breeds of hairless dogs. You can see that this woman decorated her dog with gold, which is actually how they used to do it back in ancient Egyptian times. It's a hypoallergenic dog. If you have allergies, you can keep this dog and it will never give you allergies because no hair. So, again, America is the true old world, and we're proving it every day.
There's no government, there's no presidents, there's no Democrats, there's no Republicans, there's no House of Representatives, there's none of that bullshit here. All that has come to an end. Listen to this.
The United States Treasury is now the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, Presidential Documents, Volume 24, Number 4, page 11322, United States Code 285-2887. 5. The United States does not have any employees because there is no longer a legitimate United States.
Okay, you hear that? There's no employees. The United States is over. It's done. It's a wrap. Let's go.
That's referred to the Republic, which was overthrown in 1861 with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. There shall be no more reorganizations, and after over 200 years of bankruptcy, it is finally over. That's Executive Order 12803. 6. The FCC, the CIA, the FBI, and NASA, and all the other alphabet gangs were never a lawful part of the United States Republic constitutional government. Even though the United States Government Corporation, through its trustees or representatives, held stock in all of these agencies. So when you're looking at any of these agencies, you're looking at the U.S. There are different names of contractor entities, all of which are part of the tentacle operations of the Unum Sanctum U.S. United States Corporation Company. So when you speak of one, you're talking about a masked version of the same entity. If you want some law case reference to further do research to clear your mind on any doubts that you may have, look up United States versus Strang, 254 U.S. 491, Lewis versus U.S. 680, F, 2nd edition, 1239.
Okay, there you have it. There's no more citizens here. Everybody else, if you're not an Indian, you land squatting or you're illegal. That's facts. The United States is done. It's a wrap. People are going to have to stop returning back to where they originated. This is why they tell you. This is why Kevin McCartney was trying to tell y'all. We got to find places for 14 million people to go. Because they knew that this day was coming. So now y'all got to return home. That's the Nusara Jusara takeover. I'm trying to tell y'all. That day has come, man. We get our land back. You know, we just got to go from there now. We got to put us in charge. We got to run our shit. It's our time, man. Let's go.